Great. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Arts Vote webinar, part of our Arts and Culture Advocacy series. I'm Maria Boudet, Vice Chair of the Arts and Business Council and CMO at the Miami-Dade Beacon Council. I'm here to help kick us off with some housekeeping items. So as I mentioned in the chat, we'll be keeping everyone muted today to make sure that the conversation can be as smooth as possible. We have a really jam-packed agenda with a lot of great information, but we do want to make sure that we get to your questions. So make sure to submit them via the chat, and then we'll be pulling some of those at the end of each speaker's session to make sure that we can ask them before we move on. And today's session is also being recorded, so anything that you want to share can also be shared via social and with other friends and colleagues later. More importantly, I'm here to thank our partners. Today's session is presented by the Florida Cultural Alliance and the Arts and Business Council of Miami, with support from the Miami-Dade County Department of Cultural Affairs and the Cultural Affairs Council, the Miami-Dade County Mayor's Office, and our Board of County Commissioners. Thank you for your consistent support of the arts, artists, and cultural institutions that bring vibrance and life to our community. And thank you to the thought leaders joining us today for the Arts Vote event on National Voter Registration Day. Good job picking the perfect date, you guys. So we'll have Nina Ozlu Chief Counsel of Government and Public Affairs at Americans for the Arts and Executive Director of the Americans for the Arts Action Fund, and Jay Dick, Senior Director of State and Local Government Affairs at Americans for the Arts. To get us started, let me please welcome Maria Laura Leslie. Maria Laura Leslie is the Deputy Director of the Miami-Dade Department of Cultural Affairs. An arts administrator with more than 25 years of experience, Maria Laura has worked with cultural institutions in Miami, New York, and Puerto Rico, and was founding member of the Americans for the Arts Emerging Leaders Council and the Arts Action Fund. Maria Laura, the mic is yours.
Just realized I'm not hooked up to the computer mic, so I want you to hear me properly. I just changed over. Can you hear me? Great. So you already gave the official title for Nina. So what I will say is she is our fearless leader in Washington, D.C., and the arts now have a voice on the Hill thanks to her hard work, her dedicated work. She is the person with the most energy I've ever met. It's hard to keep up with Nina. I've been up in DC on Arts Advocacy Day, National Arts Advocacy Day, and it's incredible trying to keep up with her. And let me say, when elected officials on the Hill see her coming, they know exactly what's coming at them. And so she's very well respected and feared, which I think is important. And so with that, I will also point out that this is not the first art vote that we host here in Miami. I think this is our third or fourth. I think we started in 2008. Nina might correct me, but I think it was 2000.
Oh yeah, definitely.
2016 for sure. I remember doing them. So it's new for us that we're doing it on a virtual platform. But we're very excited to have this conversation between Laura Bruni and Nina, who will tell us a little bit more about Arts Vote and what the work that she's doing through the Arts Action Fund in Washington and all that good stuff. I will also introduce Laura Bruni, who is the president and CEO of the Arts and Business Council of Miami. She is our dedicated leader here. We don't know what we would do without the wonderful Laura Bruni, who really just makes it happen every day, making sure that both the business community and the arts community in Miami-Dade County are working together to strengthen the fabric of our cultural landscape. So with that, I turn it over to Laura Bruni for her interview with Nina.
Maria Laura, thank you so much. We have a mutual admiration society. No arts organization would exist in Miami-Dade without Maria Laura and Michael Spring and the Department of Cultural Affairs. So thank you for all that you do. So Nina, I'm super excited to talk with you today. Such an important election year, voter registration day today, and I think information is power. So we want to empower everybody participating today to not only participate in all of this themselves, but also amplify what we're doing by getting out the word to everybody else. So Nina, why don't we start by having you tell us about Arts Vote?
Sure. And if we could put up a slide. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Maria Laura. You know, it's quite a thing for Maria Laura, because you all know what a jackrabbit she is. For her to say she can't keep up with me, that is quite a compliment.
A jackrabbit's a good way to describe her.
Okay, is someone going to put up the screen, or would you like me to share?
Yeah, I think we're working. Are you working on that, Anna?
I could do it. Let's just take care of it that way.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to give you, I'm going to take this screen off in just a moment, but I just wanted you to maybe take a moment to take a snapshot of this screen because it has some important URLs that we're going to be talking about today. So you won't be furiously trying to take down that exact URL address. We're going to be talking about—
we can put all those in the chat too, all the URLs.
Great. Thank you. Perfect. So first of all, Arts Vote. Arts Vote is something that we do every 2 years at the Arts Action Fund to kind of galvanize people's attention to what the issues are that in that biennial every 2-year period, whether it's legislative efforts or election efforts. It serves as both programmatic efforts. What I really love about this year is that we have partnered with Shepard Fairey, who created this beautiful artwork that you're seeing right now in various different sizes. He donated his time, and he's actually taking it one step further. Today, as was mentioned by Laura, is National Voter Registration Day, and he is the man behind Obey Giant, the Hope poster, all those kinds of beautiful posters that have been made over the years. And Obey Giant has produced 500 limited edition high-end posters for only $75 a piece, but they're all going to be individually signed by Shepard Fairey, and they go on sale today at 1 p.m. and they sell out in 1 hour. And the money is raised for the Arts Action Fund. For us, what I'm going to be talking about in a little bit is buying social media ads in the 15 battleground states to promote voter registration, which begins today. What he also did was he helped us get them in both English and Spanish. So you'll see behind Laura, the backdrop for her is in Spanish and the backdrop for me is in English. And as you're sitting at home right now thinking, I want that, how do I get that backdrop? How do I get a lot of kind of things that are part of the Arts Vote campaign? It's pretty simple. You just have to take the pledge to make your vote count this year. And then you will be opened up to a gallery of artwork that Shepard has created for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all kinds of things. And the URL for that pledge is a little clumsy, but that's why it's important to kind of take that down. What we're also going to be talking about is how you can partner in the campaign as an organization. And then the key, the heart of it, the matter is, what are the 4 steps that you need to take this year in order to make your vote count? And more importantly, because I know probably everyone on this call is already registered to vote. So what I want to do is turn you as a registered voter into an Arts Vote champion today by pledging to make 5 to 10 others in your network, family, friends, social media network followers, into pledged voters to make sure that they make their vote count, whether they live in Florida or South Dakota or California or New York, because this is a nationwide campaign that has the step-by-step approach on how to make your vote count for every state.
And Nina, I just checked, and early voting in Florida starts October 4th.
No, I would not say it's October 4th. Oh, for early voting. Before we can get to early voting, what we want to talk about is, so if we look at the steps, what we're looking at is, first is registration. And there are 2 components to registration. And I think the date that you want to say is October 5th is the last day to register to vote in Florida. Now, what's important about this is that Florida is among the 28 states in the country that have a very hard deadline for voter registration. And what I mean by that is that if you are not registered in Florida by October 5th, that's it. You lose your chance to be able to vote for this election year in November, or if you do early voting in October, you can't do it. This is a this just stops the game right there for you. That's why voter registration is so important. The reason why National Voter Registration Day is today, September 22nd, is because it gives, every state is completely different on what day they need to have their people registered by, whether they allow late registration or not, whether they allow absentee ballot, whether they've expanded absentee ballots from no excuse to COVID-19 related excuse, whether they'll automatically mail their ballots, whether they have early voting, what times, what places, can you bring your ballot to the polling station on the day of, or what the system is. We've done the research for all 50 states in DC to be able to, and we've also done it for the territories, but as you probably know, the territories are not able to vote in the presidential election because it's based on the Electoral College for states to cast electoral votes for the presidency. What I'd like to do today is walk you through what's needed for Florida. So the date.
If you can tell us the exact steps to make your vote count would be great.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen one more time. And this time I'm going to actually take you to the Arts Action Fund website. This is our landing page. It's artsactionfund.org. And there you see another variation of the beautiful Shepherd Fairy artwork. I want you to just, when you get there, you just click on this large space here. And what it's going to do is it locked while it's in Zoom? Huh. It's not moving me to the next screen. Hold on one second while I just move it myself off. We can handle these technical problems. There we go.
Technology, yay.
The key is not to get frazzled, that's all.
I know, that is the key.
Okay. So when you're in Zoom, I guess sometimes you can't move the site after you started sharing, and so it locks it up. So all I did was I hit that same image that was on our homepage to take us to the landing page for Arts Vote, which was on that screenshot that I asked you to take a picture of. The homepage is artsactionfund.org/artsvote. And so here we make it very simple. Your first action is we want you to take the pledge to make your vote count. And all that is essentially saying, yes, I agree to learn the deadlines. I agree to learn all the brand new rules that have been created as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, it is like the wild, wild west in terms of the election this year, because so many new state election laws have been changed to accommodate the situation of the pandemic. That's why you can't go into this cocky thinking, oh, you know, I've been voting all my life, I know exactly what to do. It's very different this year. And really the rules have significantly changed. And then in terms of the step-by-step approach, here we have all these one-pagers for every single state. And today we are going to focus on Florida.
And that's also in the chat.
Great. And you can see that we have your state arts advocacy organization run by Jennifer, the Florida Arts Alliance, up here because they are a state partner. And we also have Laura's organization that she can use this image to show that she is a local partner. And I'll be going into partnership to show you how you can do it as well. And we'll create these graphics for your organization and put your logo where Laura's is. Okay. So here we go. It's really just only one page long. And each one of those graphics will lead to, or you should make sure that they're linked to this one pager. Everything starts off with what the prerequisites are. You know a lot of them. I know that one case, there's a case now in your Supreme Court, and I don't know if it's been decided yet, about felonies being able, former felons being able to vote.
It's been decided that they have to pay their fees before they can vote.
Oh, but they get the right to vote, but now they have to pay their fees. Okay, so yeah. There you go. So, and that's what I mean by like election laws and legal laws impacting the election are happening as we speak, and they're going to, I guarantee you, happen after November 3rd as well. This election will unlikely be decided on November 3rd because so many states have gone to mail-in balloting that they are allowing places like California, Illinois, Pennsylvania, they're allowing to count the votes as long as they're postmarked days, in California's part, 2 weeks after the election is over. And then there are a lot of legal lawsuits happening also as to whether that can be valid. So get ready for a very long period when the election will actually be decided. But right now, let's just focus on what you have to do to make sure your vote gets counted. So step one is, for those of you already registered, please make a commitment to check the accuracy of your existing voter registration. So that is a direct link to your Florida voter registration for checking accuracy, not just registering for the first time. And the reason why that's important is because because Florida will be mailing out absentee ballots to pre-registered Floridians. If you have moved since your last voter registration, and please know that the DMV does not notify your voter registration accounts that you have moved. You have to do that proactively. You need to go in and check to make sure your addresses are correct. If you've been married and you added a name and it's been, and that is what is legally listed on your government photo ID, it has to match what your voter registration is. If you've been divorced and you no longer have a different last name, you need to make sure that is updated as well. Please do this today because the ballots will be mailed out very soon in Florida. They don't give an exact date. They say 33 to 40 days before the general election, which lands us somewhere in the zone of late September, early October.
And if I can jump in, Nina, I actually did that.
Yes.
I checked my voter registration and they've changed my polling place. So what's printed on my card is not the right polling place. So I never would have known that had I not clicked on that. And I never would have even thought to do that.
Right, there you go. That's yet another great example. And also in this first step, for those of you who have kids just turning 18, you have kids who are one of the ones that went away to college and are not doing it virtually from home, or just young adults in your life. These are the ones that are going to get lost in the cracks. These are the ones that we have to pay special attention to make sure to handhold them. Literally, I want you to handhold these young people into making sure that they get their absentee ballots sent to them if they don't plan on coming back into town and voting in person. So really think about them today in terms of what to do. That's because I'm pretty confident that all of you have done a lot of step one. Take it now to the next level. And even though registration ends on October 5th in Florida, you need to do this way in advance so you have time to correct issues. They may say, hey, if you had a legal name change, you need to come in and show us a new passport, the legal papers to show your, you don't know what you're going to be confronted with. There are a lot of efforts to suppress voting, and there are a lot of efforts to promote voting. So you don't know what county you're going to be in and what they're going to do to hassle you or to make it easy for you. So just do it early and then you won't have a problem. Then we move to step two. So in step two, really you have to ask yourself, how do I want to vote this year? Do I want to avoid being in a crowded area in lines during a pandemic and I want to make a decision to vote by mail? Or do I want to go in person? What's important is that you make that decision early because you have to follow that route all the way through to the end. So let's say you want to do absentee ballot. Americans for the Arts Action Fund is promoting heavily, and that's what a lot of political leaders are promoting, is to go ahead and choose absentee ballot as long as you do it early. Don't wait to the last minute. So in this case, let's assume that you want to do a mail-in ballot. So what's important here is that you have to look at whether things need to be postmarked or received by. From this step on, that's what you really want to be focused on, and of course do things on the early side. So in Florida, they are allowing no excuse absentee balloting. So what that means is, because of the COVID pandemic, you don't have to prove that you're incapable of coming for some health reasons or other like very specific narrow reasons is usually what absentee balloting is used for. And this year it's just opened up as mail-in balloting. And perhaps in Florida, it's been doing that, but specifically for COVID-19, it's allowing for everybody to do it. And what you want to know here is that you have to jump through hoops. There's first the hoop of requesting an application to receive an absentee ballot. And then after you complete, and you have to complete that no later than they have to receive it by October 24th. And in here, there's all the information of where you have to send it, where you have to request it. You can request it online, but you have to mail it in. And the thing is that if they have to have it received by October 24th, and we are having a national crisis with our postal service right now, I think this has to be mailed back to them at least 2 weeks in advance. Personally, I'd like everyone to make a pledge to make that request now. It's open. It's available for you to ask for that absentee ballot. Now in Florida, if you participated in the primaries earlier this year and asked for absentee balloting, in their literature, I've been reviewing the Florida website, they say that if you request an absentee ballot during the primary this year, you're automatically registered to receive an absentee ballot for the general election. So keep that in mind, but if you want to be on the safe side, go ahead when you're checking the accuracy of your registration, be sure to click on that you want to get an absentee ballot. Now remember, the juggernaut here is that you have to first fill out a form and sign it saying, yes, I want an absentee ballot. Then you wait for them to mail you the absentee ballot. Because we know that in Florida, they're going to be mailing these ballots, the actual official ballots, late September, early October, you want to be part of that first wave. You want to be ahead of it. So that's why today's the day for you to make sure that if you want to go the route of absentee ballot, you've got to do it today, so that you're part of that first big mailing. Now that you have the absentee ballot in your hands, you're at step 3, which is really the various different ways to cast your vote. And let me just scroll down here to step 3. So you've received your absentee ballot. I know in Florida, there are lots of drop-off locations. If you don't want to trust the Postal Service and you want to drive by one of the postal locations, you can click on one of these links under mailing or dropping off ballots and stuff like that, and it'll list locations for drop-off boxes. Or you can put it in the mail. The key here, again, it's very important. They don't use the word postmark. In Florida, the absentee ballot has to be received by November 3rd. So it will not be counted. I guarantee you it will not be counted in Florida if it's postmarked November 3rd and it gets to them on November 5th. It will not count. If I were talking in Pennsylvania, it would count. But in Florida, it doesn't count. So it has to be received by November 3rd. Don't wait to the last minute. I live in Virginia. I've already done my application for absentee ballot. I received my absentee ballot and I cast my vote. I am done for the November 3rd election, and it's only September 22nd. You can be in that same position very soon once you receive your ballots. Then a second option for you is, let's say, no, I don't trust mail. I don't trust drop-offs. I want to go in person. I want to get all my masks on, my gloves, everything, and I'm going to go and I want to vote in person. Great. Go, then take advantage of early voting. So the dates for early voting in Florida are October 24th to the 31st. And what's important to know here is that this is not the same thing as your typical polling station on election day. These are usually government buildings that you need to go to do early voting. And the link here will show you where and locations, or you can Google it yourself, of locations to go to for early voting. The dates for that are Saturday, October 24th until Saturday, October 31st. So what that means is after the 31st, those early voting stations are done. And if you miss that opportunity, you have to go stand in line on November 3rd. And those are your only two options. There's a little gap in between. And so let's say you requested an absentee ballot, you were mailed an absentee ballot, and you're like, I don't want to do that. I want to go to the early voting location, and I really want to do it there. Now, again, this changes from state to state how it gets done. But in Florida, they have a nice little exception where most states do not. In most states, if you receive an absentee ballot, that's it. You are on that track, and you don't have the option to go to a polling station and say, I don't want to vote by absentee ballot. I want to vote in person right now. Most states will not allow you to do that. In reviewing the Florida literature, what they allow is for you to you still have to have that absentee ballot in your hand. You can't say I lost it. You bring that ballot to the polling station and say, I want to relinquish my absentee ballot and I want to vote in person, using the poll booth and doing it there. And in Florida, they will allow you to do that. What will happen in other states is you have to bring your absentee ballot, you have to complete your absentee ballot and drop it off at the polling station. They will not allow a switch. So you have a little bit of flexibility. I always prefer, because it'll cause confusion, it will always cause confusion to say, I want to relinquish an absentee ballot and I want to do something else. It's too sketchy. So just stick with the decision you make. Are you going to choose absentee balloting this year, or are you going to do it in person? If you do it in person, go do early voting and get it done on the early side. If it opens up on October 24th, get it done on October 24th. Your last resort. Election day is no longer just November 3rd. November 3rd represents the last day to vote in election season. That's the way you got to look at it. And in Florida, they don't keep counting after November 3rd. All counting is done on November 3rd. They start processing absentee ballots as they receive them. So there will be a number. A lot of other states are not going to be like that. Florida might be a shining example this year, where your votes aren't counted and announced on the night.
In Florida, when you do an absentee ballot, you can look online and make sure it's processed. You can get an email, or you can check and make sure that it was processed.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Many states have started adding this because it's become so popular. And what they're doing, there is a link on your Florida election supervisor of elections site where you can track your absentee ballot. You can see if it's been mailed to you. You can see if they received it. It's really a great feature for those who are nervous about whether we should do it. In the end, if you ask me, what should I do, Nina? Should I do absentee ballot, or because of the problems with the postal system, should I go in person? I recommend the safest and surest thing is go absentee ballot, but only if you pledge to do it on one of the earliest days possible. I'll conclude. And I'll just add, step 4 is just about celebrating your vote. You're here because we are becoming a cadre of people right here at this moment of becoming Arts Vote champions to get people to make their vote count. And step 4 is what this is about. Promote what you're doing to others so that it triggers something in their mind. What? You already got your ballot? I didn't know you could do that. What? You already voted? I didn't know you could do that. How'd you do that? Here's the information. Here's the one pager. It's all at your fingertips. Get it done early. Celebrate your vote.
And Nina, that's a perfect segue to my next question for we really want to empower everybody on the phone to get their patrons, get their arts enthusiasts, get all of their people that love what they do and trust what they do to also be empowered and to have all of this information. So can you give us some tips on, in addition to social media, like other ways that they can use their website, use their emails to get this message out?
Yes. So first of all, the most important thing that I like to tell organizations that are nonprofit organizations is I want to make sure you know that this campaign, this education effort is 100% educational. Even though the word vote is in the name of the campaign, it is not an electoral activity. It is not prohibited for nonprofit organizations to get involved with. So do not be fearful of this. What you are doing is civic education. You are not trying to influence the way someone votes for a particular candidate, a particular party, or a position whatsoever. You are just saying, go vote and make your vote count. I don't care how and who you vote for. I just want you to vote. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just as Laura is doing in creating a webinar for her members, you can be doing this for your members. And you can even possibly even do it as a fundraiser if you're looking for these kinds of things. But I encourage you to come join and be a partner of Arts Vote. And one of the URLs that I put in that snapshot is artsactionfund.org/participate in Arts Vote. And it's really simple. It's you agreeing to pledge to promote the campaign. And what we will do is customize a great graphic that you saw with the state of Florida in it, and we'll put a heart where your location is, the city that you're in, and we will add your logo to that. In addition, the Florida Cultural Alliance will be on there and the Arts Action Fund logos, and you will be a partner to promote this on your website and on your social media. But take it a step further, do a webinar like this. Encourage those who are looking for still something to do and they're willing to do things in person. They're going to need a lot of poll workers and absentee vote readers and mail openers and things like that. They can also volunteer that way. And you can, every person that you touch has a network that they have as well, whether it's just family and friends or whether it is a social network. So don't think just about what you can do on your website. What you want to do is do everything on your website and social media, but get them to pledge to do it on theirs as well. So it becomes viral and and we're really arming people with the information that they need, and they realize how important it is that if we don't have everyone registered in Florida by October 5th, the game is over. I mean, they cannot vote. It's too late, baby. That's all I would say.
And that's a week away or 2 weeks away.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a question. Is the Arts Vote information available in Spanish?
Not the information, but all of the graphics are. We have not had the bandwidth to yet get things translated, this one pager, into Spanish, but I'm looking for volunteers.
Okay, that's out there now. So anyone that wants to volunteer, email me and I'll let Nina know that you volunteered to do that.
And you will get credit on these one pagers. We will give you credit for sure.
That would be a great service for somebody to do that. I love the Shepherd Ferry piece. Can you tell us about, is there other opportunities for beyond the Zoom? Is there other opportunities to buy or use some of the image?
Yeah, so I mentioned that if anyone's interested in buying one of the original limited edition numbered, oh, and look, Jay is carrying an Arts Vote cup.
Ah, perfect timing, Jay.
So let me first finish with the Shepherd Ferry. If you go to obeygiant.com at exactly 1 p.m. Eastern time, a fast sale will happen of the first 500 posters, $75 each. They will be signed by Shepherd, and they will be numbered. So it has value for sure, but we have lots of merchandise. So what I'm going to do is just open up that page, and I'm going to share the screen for a moment, and I want to just take you through there. 1 second. Okay, here I'm ready to share my screen. Okay, everyone can see this is again the Arts Vote landing page that you remember seeing. Action 1 is the pledge. Action 2 are the state voter pages where you can access Florida. Here's a great video of Shepherd talking about creating the artwork. And then down here along the left are tons of tabs and how you can become a partner and things like that. And then we have the Arts Vote store. And I love this. We have all our merchandise in Spanish and English. So you can get everything from t-shirts to sweatshirts, to bags, to duffel bags, to masks, buttons, cups, tumblers, blankets, pillows, aprons, my favorite, notebooks, wallets, iPhone backdrops, tons and tons of things, stickers, bumper stickers, and equal opportunity, folks. We have it in Spanish too.
It would be great to wear an Arts Vote mask when you go to vote.
Oh yeah, that would be good. So there's lots of great merch to kind of show your pride.
It's such a great image too. I love the way it looks. He's just so talented. It's amazing. Okay,
I'm seeing a lot of volunteers in the chat room about the one pager. Yes, please. And all I need is you saw the Florida one pager. If you could just get that translated and sent to Laura for her to forward to me, that would be great.
We'll put that out on our social media too. Great. Hopefully we'll be able to get somebody to do that. I'm confident that we will. So any closing comments? We're running out of time for our section. So Nina, do you have any closing tips, comments?
Yeah, so today is 42 days before the November 3rd election. But in Florida, as we've already said, October 5th, for some people, that's how many days you have left before the election to have the right to be able to vote. Nobody wants to have their right taken away. So the only way to protect your right is to make sure you, your loved ones, your friends, your fans, your followers, to be registered to vote by October 5th. And that's much less than 42 days. I'm just gonna count it out to, it's 13 days away. Okay.
And I really think your point about check, even if you think you're registered, check, because there's a lot of shenanigans going on. So you want to make sure that they haven't done anything weird to your registration.
Exactly. And one of the most common reasons why an absentee ballot is rejected is, one, it was not, you forgot to sign it. Okay. And two, your signature didn't match your registration. Now, what I want you to think about is most people on this call have been going in person and voting for most of their life since they've been 18. Here's the thing. Your original voter registration, if you've been living in the same location for years, was when you first became 18 probably, and you signed it. I bet your signature looks very different than it does today when you're a full-grown adult. So that's another reason to kind of maybe update your voter registration to make sure your signature matches the way you signed today.
And they had a lot of issues with that in the primary, that people's votes weren't counted because they said their signatures didn't match.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends county to county. Are they looking for a reason to suppress your vote, or are they looking for a reason to count your vote? Right. You have to take that into consideration based on where you live.
And we're a big swing state, so it's even more important that all of us get out and vote and make our voice heard. So Nina, thank you so much. This was really great information. And hopefully we will have, be able to find a volunteer to translate that Florida page for for all of us.
And I want to make sure, are there any questions in the chat room that I need to address?
I don't think so. I think the only question was about the arts vote.
Okay, great.
And if we get any in later, I'll email them to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Great. So
much.
I'm going to turn it over to Maria Laura to do the intros for the next section.
And here I am back with my beautiful background, which you too can have. I'm definitely getting that mug day for sure.
Aren't you
For
impressed?
sure.
I've got the Spanish one up, Maria Laura.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I am impressed. Very good. So thank you, Nina and Laura. That was a great conversation. And we are now looking forward to another conversation, this time between Jay Dick and Jennifer Jones. Jennifer Jones, as all of you know, is the director of our Florida Cultural Alliance, which is our statewide advocacy organization. And shout out to Tampa. There's someone from Tampa on the call. So thanks for joining us. The Florida Cultural Alliance works hard all year long to help us advocate for the state arts budget. It's very important work and it's exhausting. So we really appreciate Jennifer and all her energy and everything she brings to help us stay organized and stay focused on advocating for that state arts budget. If you're not already a member of the Florida Cultural Alliance, please join us. All of the information is available on our website at flca.net. And now I'd like to also introduce Jay Dick, who will be talking with Jennifer in this next segment. And Jay is the Senior Director of State and Local Government Affairs at Americans for the Arts. He works closely with Nina. And Jay's combined expertise in the areas of arts policy, the federal legislative process, and government really helps us to better advocate in Washington on behalf of the arts in America. And, you know, when there's legislation that's coming up, that's being talked about, that relates to the arts or may have an impact on the arts, Jay's the person who I call to help me decipher what the potential impacts of that legislation might be. For example, when the CARES Act was happening, Jay and Nina both were very instrumental in helping understand what the impact of the CARES Act would be on the cultural landscape of the nation. And so that's incredibly valuable, just one of the many things that they accomplish in DC. And Jay is also known to be incredibly helpful. He's the person who is connecting the arts with other very important national networks to make sure that the arts are part of the conversation everywhere. For example, influential networks like the National Association of Counties or the U.S. Conference of Mayors or the National League of Cities. And so Jay's on the ground quite a bit. I recommend that you follow Jay on Twitter. It's fascinating. Jay at AFTA. I'm sorry, at Jay AFTA. And also you can follow Nina at Nina for Arts on Twitter. They're both always very active in making sure that the arts are part of the conversation in Washington, D.C. So with that, I turn it over to Jennifer and Jay.
Thank you, and good morning. Thanks everyone again for being here, and thank you, Jay, for what is about to be a very informative conversation. So in prep for our conversation, Jay provided me with basically a wagon load of slides. So I went through them, and I'm going to pose my questions in a way that's when your slide deck, which we'll make available to everybody after the call, when they see it, they'll have points of reference in our conversation so that they will be able to refer back and remind themselves. So there's talk of advocacy, there's lingo, and I've been in other webinars where sometimes the language seems to be a little bit inaccessible, and we take things for granted because we have the curse of knowledge that we're in this every day. So we know it's important, but there may be reasons why it's important that we don't think of very often. So Jay, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you two questions and let you run with it. Can you tell us the importance of arts advocacy that may not seem obvious? And then there's at least 4 good terms on a spectrum, from education to electioneering, so that we get a good idea of what advocacy, where it falls, and what we can do.
Perfect. Thanks, Jennifer. And thanks, everyone, for being with us today. And it was good to see Nina. On a normal day without COVID, I can look from my desk across the hall into her office too, and see her sitting there. So we haven't been able to do that since I think March 14th or something along those lines. So while we have different meetings, it's always, internally, it's always nice to see Nina online there too. Nina took you up through November 3rd. And so my part of this is, November 4th and forward, why it's important to be a good advocate. And I do want to comment on something that, Nina was talking about. She was talking about she's already returned her absentee ballot. Like I saw her Twitter picture about mailing her absentee ballot in. So I live probably maybe 10 miles from Nina. We're in a different county though. I've still not gotten my absentee ballot yet. And so I'm like, well, where is it? Nina got hers last Friday and it's now Tuesday. Where's mine? So things happen from county to county. And so just stay on track. And everything that Nina said was wonderful information there to help people be able to get this plan to vote. So wonderful that. So anyway, so I want to talk about what you should be doing the other 364 days of the year throughout Florida and throughout the nation. And so one of the things that Jennifer was talking about is people kind of get a little confused or maybe even freaked out about different terms that are out there. And so I use the terms, and it's a spectrum: educate, advocate, lobbying, and electioneering. And I'll briefly go through each of those for you. Educate is basically what you do every day of your life. You're talking about what you do, why the arts are important, why they matter, why they're, they help the economy, they help the, education, different things like that. You're just talking about that. You as an individual, you as maybe someone who works for government, you as someone who maybe works for a 501c3 organization, etc., can talk about and educate till you're blue in the face. There's no prohibition on anything like that. The next step up from that is advocacy, to advocate. And we'll be talking a lot about advocating here today too. Advocating is just kind of putting a little bit of a spin on that education and say, you know what, you should be supporting the arts because they do all these wonderful things. Again, nothing terribly specific there. You're not referencing any legislation, anything like that, but you're just talking about the arts in general. And so, again, from a government affair, if you work for the government, a C3 or an individual, again, you can advocate until, again, you are blue in the face. It is completely appropriate, and you should be doing this. And again, this is oftentimes what you're doing on your day-to-day job to that. Now, lobbying is where people start freaking out a little bit. And they go, oh, no, I can't do that or anything along those lines. Lobbying is actually something that most individuals should be doing. Lobbying is the difference between lobbying and advocating for a general person. There are professional lobbyists who register. Nina is a lobbyist officially, and so she has to fill out her forms or whatever. But like Jennifer or different folks like that, you're a citizen first, and you are technically, when you go to down to Tallahassee or something like that, and you are you are only lobbying when you do three things. You're talking to someone whose opinion matters, i.e. the legislator, their staff. You're talking about a specific piece of legislation or regulation, and then you're advocating a position, yes or no. If you're not doing all three of those things at once, you're not legally, technically lobbying. And so, so when people think about that whole lobby thing, they really think that's a big thing. The jets taking people down to the Caribbean for golfing and stuff like that. That's really not how it really works too terribly much. For those people who work for a 501c3, you can absolutely lobby. It just can't take up more than 20% or preponderance of your time by our IRS regulations that are out there. So you're not going to hit that because, again, you're very seldom doing all three of those things at once. And then if you are in the government work for the government, you need to be a little more careful about that, especially if you work for the state government and you are going to the state government to be advocating or lobbying. you might need to check out with that. But chances are you can still do it on the federal level, because those two things don't count there. And then lastly is electioneering, and that's what Nina was talking about. That is going above and beyond, and there's several things, there's many things you can do with electioneering. Nina talked a lot about the nonpartisan things that everyone can still do, whether you work for a C3 or C4 government. You can be doing voter education, get out the vote, anything that's nonpartisan that you want to do. But then if you want to go into the endorsements or things like that, you will need to have like a 501c4 organization, and most of us on the phone from our official role cannot legally endorse a candidate or give money from our work accounts or anything along those lines. So I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time about that. But why are we doing this? Why is it important for us to advocate? Is I find that when I work with elected officials throughout the country, from left, right, or center, I have to do a lot of education, because a certain subset of our elected officials have this preconceived notion of what the arts are. And I joke that they think about the arts as those SOBs, those symphony, operas, and ballets, which I love, my symphonies, operas, and ballets. So don't take offense if there's someone on there from one of those organizations. But the high art, the arts for the elite, the arts for the coasts, the arts, there's this preconceived conception by many of our elected officials that the arts are just not for them, that the arts don't affect them. But once I have a little bit of time with them, and I can explain that the arts are after-school dropout prevention programs, the arts are our healthcare for our veterans with PTSD or traumatic brain injury, the arts can help with juvenile justice reform, different things along those lines, you see that light bulb go off and you go, oh wow, I never thought about that. I never realized that the arts can do everything that everyone on this phone knows that the arts can do, but they didn't realize it. So oftentimes the first step of that advocacy is just having a conversation and getting on the same level with your elected officials or their staffs to tell them what the arts actually do. We're a huge part of the GDP, of taxes, of employment. They just don't realize it. I always say the arts are one of the best kept secrets out there, and it's our goal to collectively to be the advocates and to be able to educate our elected officials over and over and over and over again to be part of why and to support the arts, whether it be for the funding, whether it be for any different things, whether it's part of the CARES Act, being part of gig employees being treated like for unemployment insurance, or arts organizations for the PPPs, a whole wide range of things. The key thing though, Jennifer, is if we don't stand up and talk about the arts and culture, who's going to? And the answer is probably no one. And it's upon us to advocate for the arts, educate them, because if elected officials do not hear from us, they're going to assume no one cares. And that is the death knell, that they think, oh, no one cares about the arts. That's why it's so important that you write your members of Congress or your state legislators, you make phone calls, you go to their open houses, anything that you can do just to say, I care about the arts, and therefore you, my elected official, should care about them too.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, success, because you said all three things at one time and more than 20% of your work. So most everyone here is actually in the business of creating and presenting art, not the full-time job of advocating for the arts. So it's very, very unlikely that you're going to meet that threshold. So you should feel confident, first of all, that you actually know what you're talking about, because you do, and then that it's okay to talk about it. So I was trying to think of a way, to frame all this up, and the weather's a thing we have in common here in Florida, and we're watching it every day, watching the radar. But it occurred to me, so there's a climate, there is the political climate of today. And then there are seasons, and there are times of years when we work through the cycle. And then there are the elements that make up an advocacy campaign. So can we go ahead and address the 800-pound gorilla of the political climate, and how we navigate in a nuanced way, or not even necessarily so nuanced, but strategic, that we know we have something in common with the people that we have to speak to. Can you
Sure, I'll address that in a couple different ways. So one, we live in a very divided world. Whether you live in Florida, a swing state, or Massachusetts, a really blue state, or North Dakota, a really red state, it's still divided within everything there. And I find that the arts and culture are one of those few things that still unite us, that we can still come together to enjoy a wonderful play or a gallery opening or things along those lines. And I take it and I tell my folks like you, like, we have now, I think, an extra responsibility to be that conduit of keeping people together, whether it's politically or whether it's emotionally through COVID-19, that people are not getting out. And so we really do have an extra level of responsibility now, because again, the arts are one of those last few things that you can still talk about with the family over Thanksgiving dinner, and crazy Uncle George can't really disagree with you too terribly much on the arts, And quite honestly, especially with elected officials, I've been with Americans for the Arts for 16 years now, I've never met an elected official that says, I hate the arts. Haven't met them. They might not agree with public. You have one. I might have some folks that say, "Oh, I don't believe in public funding for the arts," but maybe I'll talk about arts education, or I'll talk about arts of the military, or different things like that. But I got something, to talk about. I have a friend who's another lobbyist who works for the American Chemistry Council, and he's like, everyone loves you. They hate me. They call me all kinds of names, but they love you, the arts guy, because you're the arts guy, type of thing. Whatever, I'll take it, with that. But, we do live in a hyper-partisan world. And so when I'm talking to my candidates, especially folks that might live in a world where there's real, far left or far right type of elected officials, I want to remind them of a few things. That it's always about policy, not personality. So stay away from the personality aspect of things. Talk about what the policy is and why it will help Floridians or Americans or whatever the case is. Don't talk about craziness or anything like that. Just stick to the policy, because we have great numbers. We have great stories to tell. We don't even have to go to the personality type of thing. Stick to the policy, type of thing. It's the arts are it's not about being a partisan. It's about being bipartisan. I always say, you can't spell the word bipartisan without the word art. Bipartisan. And so, that's an incredibly important thing for us, that, again, we bring people still together. We allow people to be able to have cross conversations with that. So again, so many people think, oh, the arts, just Democrats, love the arts. Well, everyone on this, Zoom knows that that's not the truth. Look at look at your donors. You're going to see some really good Republican donors there. We have great relationships with Republicans on Capitol Hill or in the state legislature. So one, because we have to, things are so divided, but two, because, again, we can find some level of agreement with most any legislator that's out there. I'll give you a quick little example. A few years ago, I was traveling with the National Conference of State Legislators for their Military and Veterans Affairs Task Force. And one of the individuals that was, who was a chair at that point, who I never met before, his name was Representative Flynn. I can't think of his first name, but he's from Texas. And he describes himself as the third most conservative legislator in the Texas House. So kind of where we're at. And so the first day, I'm speaking on the second day, the first day we kind of run into each other in the hallway, and I introduce myself, and he hears the arts, and he literally looks at me, and goes, "Boy, what are you doing here?" And I said, well, sir, the arts are not just what you think, but the arts are arts of the military, PTSD, all this stuff. And he's an Army guy by history. And by the end of that second day, he was my new best friend. He's like, what do you want? I just had to talk to him on his level, what he understood. And so that's always a very important thing to do, is just find out where they're coming from and find that commonality. Because I can guarantee you, we will have some form of commonality with every legislator out there. We just have to find it, and we have to be strategic about what we're talking about, things like that. Some of the other things we need to talk about, it's about the economy. the economy is stupid, we're going through lots of stuff here. The arts are a great part of our economy. The arts are going to get us restarted when it's safe to go out and, to come and to gather. People are going to want to come together in our venues once we're through COVID, because they need it. They emotionally need to get out. And so talk about stuff like that. And again, it's something that, you guys know well on here. It's about business. People think, the arts are these, little, granola, they're not real jobs or anything like that, but we all know for the fact that they're real jobs with real salaries and real benefits and with real impact upon, society and our local, cities and towns. Emphasize that. Again, there's great BA numbers we have at americansforthearts.org/research. We have tons of economic data about why the arts matter. We go into, we have Florida specific information about jobs, about number of companies that are part of the creative industries. We have tons of things like that. And then, the last thing I'll talk about in a hyperpartisan area is understand what makes, what that key decision maker cares about. Again, I've referenced that in the past, but it's really important for them to, for you to be able to make that connection. One of the things that I always do is I always try to make that connection before I even talk about any policy. Find something that I have in common with folks like that. So there's a lot of great things that you can do that removes ourselves from this hyper-partisan area and it grounds us in this is us. This is not you versus them. This is us that we have there. I have some other things. I have some key principles of advocacy that I will let you look at on my slides. They're on slides 9 and 10. But basically, little things that you can do on a daily basis, knowing that you're not a professional advocate or professional lobbyist, but little things you can do from your C3 or from your government spot to help promote the arts. It could be anything like building coalitions, trying to figure out a strategy, working with folks like Jennifer at the Florida Cultural Alliance to be part of a larger group of individuals. So there's lots of little things that you can do that's not going to be overtaxing for you on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. So that's, of course, I can't resist interjecting my own experience here very briefly. So there are seasons, and we are not past the election, so we don't know who's going to be in the seat really when it's ready. When we're ready to present our platform, which can't be prepared until all the grants are reviewed. So we're kind of in a prep or a holding pattern. But I will tell you something I'm excited about is all this time we've been doing a candidate survey, because one thing they love to do is talk right now because they're trying to get elected. So we've presented a candidate survey and we're getting response back already. But we asked the questions because, like you say, it's the economy, So we said, do you care about the economy? Do you care about education? Do you care about quality of life? And then public-private partnerships like fiscal accountability and partnership in moving forward. And of course, they all say yes. And I asked them, did you know this about the arts? And so I'm getting responses and phone calls back from candidates, and they want to hear from the arts people in their own districts because that's who's going to vote for them. So I've actually set them up to make a connection. On our statewide call next week, we'll be making connections and I'll be reporting on their surveys. But I did on the Did You Know the Arts Do This for the Economy, I put update. As of September 14th, 1,400 arts organizations in Florida have reported $194 million in losses due to COVID, so that we just don't give these general, we impact the economy, and they're like, yeah, I'm sure you fluffed up the numbers. It was like, no, and here's what's happening at the same time. And long-term legislators, that incumbents are checking that box is, no, I didn't know that. They know the claims that we make for the good that the arts do. They didn't know the damage that was happening to the industry and how many people had lost their jobs. So we're kind of seeding the clouds, getting ready, hopefully to be a rainmaker, and we're going to hook up the people, our membership in the districts with those people. But so we can advocate at this time. And then the call coming after will be with the Florida Chamber of Commerce. They're actually going to come alongside us because we have things in common on quality of life and the arts. So I've met with them and they'll be our guests. So these alliances and finding common ground is really important. It's going to hopefully result in something super tangible very shortly. So the elements, we know the platform's kind of on hold. We're in a holding pattern, but could you tell us about the story after the platform? We all have to have a story to tell, who we tell it to, and who we get to help us tell the story.
Excellent. And I will encourage listeners, put some stuff in the chat box. I'm happy to answer questions as we are going through this. I'd rather answer the question now than, you guys, hey, Jay, 20 minutes ago, you said X, Y, or Z. I don't know what I said 5 minutes ago, let alone 20. So feel free to interrupt us, because I think that's where the interesting conversation also happens there. We have a rule at Americans for the Arts, no research without a story and no story without research. We really kind of connect those two things. And we, in the arts, have great research, great data, and we also have great stories. And the stories are really where you come in. This is your lived experience. This is your, what you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And so what I always encourage people when they're going to talk to an elected official, again, or their staffs, because the staffs are really important, especially professional staffs that maybe outlast the legislator. The legislator or a city councilman might be there for a couple terms, but that professional staff there is for 30 years, and they'll remember what happened 25 years ago, whether it's good or negative. So, keep those folks in mind there too. But go to Americans for the Arts website, go to the Florida Cultural Alliance's website, get the research, the data that you need. We make it all out there for you for free. It's easily downloadable. A lot of it is customizable to Florida or even your county in Florida, and use that, and then find a story that goes along with it, and stories, in my PowerPoint that I encourage you to look at, I have like a 7-stage step of what a good story will look like. I'm not going to go through all that, but let's just say the story needs to be something that is memorable, because that elected official is not going to remember it's the arts are $840 billion a year industry or something like that. But what they will remember is, oh yeah, Jennifer told me about this one student who was going to drop out, but the arts class was what kept her going, and now she is at University of Florida and she's majoring in blah blah, whatever. That's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember those stories. And so if you can, we always say, find a story that really helps to emphasize your points or your research, because again, that's what they're going to remember. They have all kinds of data and research that they have advantage to, or they have access to, but they're going to remember that story. And the key thing is they're going to remember the story, but they're like, oh wait, I forget about it. Let me just call Jennifer up and let me ask her about this. So again, you're making that connection, that you're creating this. Jennifer is now the auxiliary staffer for whatever senator for the arts and culture or whatever. And so you really want to, again, establish yourself as someone who has great information, that's not going to be partisan, that's going to be honest, and everything like that. So never underestimate a good story, because we really don't.
Okay, so there's some more terminology in advocacy that I want you to define, and I think it goes to the other question I ask, is the difference between grassroots and grass tops as far as alliances in advocacy.
So there's lots of different ways to get to a successful advocacy campaign. I always talk about the advocacy campaigns as far as a piece of the pie. You have a whole pie, and it's not complete unless you have all the pieces there. And some of those would be the grassroots, the grass tops, which I'll get into. It could be letters to the editor. It could be professional lobbyists. It can be campaigns through the media, a variety of different things. But grassroots is those everyday individuals who are who write emails or make phone calls to say, I support the arts. They're taking our information, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're just completely random. They care about the arts, and they're talking about that. The nice thing about us at Americans for the Arts and you in Florida is there are a lot of people in America that care about the arts and culture. It's just something that's part of them. Again, my friend with the American Chemistry Council, he really can't say that too terribly much, that there's people out there that really care and love chemicals. Well, maybe not the best argument for him, but for us, the arts, we have great arguments about why the arts really do, are part of that. And so how can we, with our grassroots, get people to write? Now, grass tops, which I hope everyone on here is a grass top. And what I mean by grass top is you have a personal relationship with that elected official or your elected officials. And by personal relationship, it can be anywhere from, they just know your name, they know what you do, but the key thing is you can get to them. You have their cell phone number, they will respond to your emails, different things along those lines. And so, for example, with my local elected official, I actually didn't get to know them through the arts. I got to know them through my homeowners association. I'm on the board and the president of the homeowners association. I got to know them through that, but I certainly let them know what I do for a living and why I care about the arts and why it's important to me and stuff like that. And so, I have their cell phones. In the best of worlds, they come to, they come to my house for parties. I'll go to theirs. But it's authentic, and that's the key thing. It has to be an authentic relationship. So everyone's goal here is, if you don't already know your elected officials and can kind of have a back and forth with them, figure out a way to do that in an authentic way. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be through the arts. It can be through another format or form that's out there too. But that's an important thing for you to do. The other thing that Jennifer kind of hinted on was she talked about the Chamber of Commerce partnerships. It's always better, easier, and more efficient and effective to do things with people, larger groups of people. And so, the Chambers of Commerce are a great example of that. We share part of our mission and what we care about, the Chambers of Commerce care about. We want, the economy to get back to normal and to get going, artists to be back into the workplace, stuff like that. Chambers of Commerce want that exact same thing. They have a little broader thing, but, we share part of that mission. And so we're working together on a national level, on state levels, local levels, for the Chamber to echo our message to your mayor, to your city council people, about why they should be supporting the arts and culture. Because if they support the arts and culture, the larger economy, which they care about, gets improved there. And so think about those organizations. They don't have to be arts organizations. Actually, they're better if they're not arts organizations that share part of our mission. For stuff. It could be your hospital associations about arts, with the arts and healthcare. It could be, of course, your schools, your educational, your Florida Education Alliance, or whatever you call it down there, that represents the teachers or the school boards or the school districts. Reach out to them and say, hey, we have something in common. And oftentimes, they're not going to really, they might not actually realize what you have in common until you tell them about it. And again, it's kind of like that elected official. They don't really know what the arts do until you tell them about it. Once you tell them about it, then they go, oh, wow, you're right. Let's talk together. Let's work together. And we have so much that we can bring to that conversation, whether it be, again, research, data, stories, or voters.
Yeah. So another grass tops type person, besides the people on the call, if they don't agree necessarily that they're grass tops because they don't have a relationship with the legislator, they may have board members that do to script their board members.
Absolutely.
Or members.
So, I would challenge everyone to have a personal relationship with your local elected officials. You should certainly do that. Now, not everyone is going to be able to have that, say, with your 2 U.S. senators or your governor or things along those lines. But again, that's where, often your board members come in, or just any other members of your arts community that are active out there. And so what I oftentimes would do is there's a website called opensecrets.com where you can see political giving. So look up all your board members to see who they give to and how much they give. And if you see a substantial contribution, reach out to your board member and say, hey, I have a message. Can you convey this to whomever? And see if they'll do that. And oftentimes, they'll like, oh, I don't, I work, this is a C3. I don't want to do this. I don't want to get you in trouble. But remember what I said at the very beginning about this, advocacy, education, advocacy, lobbying. You can still do that as a C3. And so give them the tools that they need to feel comfortable and to be able to deliver that message for you. And oftentimes it is those proxies that matter, that message is just amplified because these are people that maybe that elected official really respects. or you know, they own a big company or whatever the case happens to be. But certainly, you know, look at everything that's out there, every resource that you have, and you know, and use them. And I always find this, that it's always better to ask them, because if you don't ask them, they never have the opportunity to say, yes, I'll help you. And so always ask them. And if they say no, okay, they say no, but they might say yes, you know, and use that.
Yeah.
Hi,
Can
Jay.
you-
Can I jump in? I actually have a question that was emailed to me that wasn't put in the chat. When you were talking about the economic impact, that is such a big selling point for us with a lot of our local and state elected officials, that not, you know, like the arts have such a significant economic impact in our state with cultural tourism. And so one of the questions they asked was about, is the economic prosperity study, which I think is supposed to be next year. Do you know, is that still going to happen next year?
It has been delayed 1 year
Okay.
because we're in the middle of a pandemic and
Right.
an economic disaster here. But it's going to happen again. So, but we have our data from Arts and Economic Prosperity 5 that's still up there. And we have a calculator that's actually part of that too. And so if you were not one of the participants, which in say you run a museum or something like that, you can go to, again, americansforthearts.org/research. And you can, you know, go into, find the calculator, and it just asks you a few questions like, how big is your city? And there's a drop down. What is your budget? How many people come through your door each year? And then it will pop out your estimated economic impact for full-time equivalent employees, tax contributions, stuff along those lines. So it gives you a good place to start. And I will guarantee you, you will be amazed at how big those numbers are once you do that. Because again, even the artists and arts organizations, it's the biggest kept secret out there, and it's always shocking. And again, with us, with our arts and economic prosperity, that's the latest number is $166.2 billion a year industry for the nonprofits. You know, that's conservative because we only count who we can count. You know, if an arts organization doesn't submit their information to us, we just don't count them. So, you know, $166.2 billion for the nonprofits is a small number actually, and so, but it's still impressive. And so, you know, and when we go to like the Bureau of Economic Analysis for our GDP, we're 4.3% of gross domestic product, which again doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you compare it, I always compare numbers. You know, transportation, it's bigger than transportation, it's bigger than construction, it's bigger than agriculture. There's all kinds of things and people go, what? I didn't know that, you know, you were bigger than transportation or construction. But again, you have to educate them. You have to show them, you have to tell them, and you have to tell them repeatedly, because sometimes elected officials can be a little dense. And so you have to let them know over and over and over again why the arts matter.
Well, what I love about what you guys do at Americans for the Arts, I've done the Arts Action Day, and you break it down so when we go meet with the elected officials, we can say the NEA brings this amount to our state, this many workers, this much. So the second part of the question was, for next year, when we're meeting with elected officials, once people are elected and the new people are in, is it going to be a good idea to talk about the devastating economic impact of the arts and how now we really need help to recover? Or do you think that's going to be a negative message?
So we're looking a little ahead with our crystal ball here. And so I think it depends on where we are at with this pandemic at that point too. So if, for example, we do have a vaccine, people are starting to get back to work in bigger numbers, I think we look at the recovery and how we can be part of that recovery faction there. And you can talk about how we have been decimated, but I think it's the recovery there. If we're still in the middle of this thing, you know, which God, I hope we're not. It is about, it's about, relief. It's still about the relief thing going on too. So like right now, what we're talking about right now is still relief. And one of the biggest things that my groups that I work with, like again, the governors, the mayors, the county folks, state legislators, is they are desperate for state and local funding from the federal government to offset their massive losses from lack of tax dollars. And if that doesn't happen, there's going to be massive service cuts everywhere. Red states, blue states, it's going to be a disaster out there. And unfortunately, what does that mean for the arts? It means we're going to see some cuts too. Now, I always talk about, if everyone is getting cut and we take a proportional cut, so be it. I just don't want us to take disproportionate cuts. And so that's why we really need to talk about how we can still be part of the recovery and don't be short-sighted. I actually have a blog post about this, actually, that I wrote about how arts are part of the recovery. And so if someone can find on our website, our arts blog, arts blog, and find me, there's my most recent post, or one of my most recent posts is about that. And that was actually a blog that I did for the national, who was I do that? It was either the National League of Cities or the International City Managers Association. That was on their blog. And so all their elected officials are seeing it on their stuff. That's what I love to do. I take our stuff, I put it on those elected officials blog post or whatever, because those are the groups that elected official goes to for their information, and so they're going to go there. They're more apt to read it or see it, and they're more apt to believe it because their association that they pay dues to is telling them that's what it is. And that's why I spend a lot of my time with these organizations.
We'll find that blog post and attach it. We email everybody afterwards, so we'll send that to all the participants.
Perfect. And thank you for whoever it was, Jennifer, for the open secrets. It's .org.com. I couldn't remember which one it was.
They're both of them are real websites, and
okay.
They both talk about contributions. But it's .org.
They're probably the same one. They just kind of go to the same place.
Maybe so. Yeah. Well, so are there any other questions? I know there's a lot to cover, and there's not a lot of time left. And the resources that are being posted and will be sent following this will be very helpful. But is there anything else that occurred to you?
Yeah,
Jay?
well, the one thing that I want to also say is, you were talking about, the new Congress comes in, new elected officials come in after this election, or even if they're already existing there, is don't be shy about approaching them for a meeting. It's not rocket science. You just, call them up and say, hi, I'm a constituent. It's very important. I'm a constituent. That's what you start out with. And I would like to meet with Senator so-and-so about the arts. When is his schedule or her schedule open for me to come and meet with them? And, so you always can do things like that. And that's what you need to do. And just, and if they're going to accept your meeting at some level. It might not be next week or whatever, but keep on them and be proactive. And I always say the best type of a meeting, you bring in an arts professional, you bring in a business leader, and you bring in a kid. Bring in those three things, that's a great meeting, good trifecta for a meeting, because the arts professional makes sure all the data gets out there. The business leader represents the business folks. Add of course an artist in there too, and then the kid could also be an artist in there too, because that's what they're going to ooh and ah about, and that's what they're going to remember, which is fine as long as they remember it, and then they're going to come back and say, okay, what is those numbers, again, that. So, be proactive about that. Again, these people work for us. They are our elected officials. There's nothing to be scared about that. I know sometimes I accompany people on Capitol Hill for meetings, whatever, and they'll be nervous. They're like, this is my first time. I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And I have to say to them, it's okay. You're the subject matter expert. You live this every day. Just tell your story. That's all you have to do. The elected officials, their staff members, they're generalists. They're not going to know everything. And if you make a little bit of a slip up here, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But again, you're the constituent, and they need to hear from you. So I always say, deep breath. And then once we get done with that, they come out and they're kind of smiling because they're like, wow, I did it. I made a difference. And I love to see that. I love to see people's change from timid to, I got this, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it back in my home state, and and I'm a force to be reckoned with. And that's what we need to do. We need to to stand up. We need to talk about what we do, what you do, because what you do is valuable, and what you do for the economy is essential. And we just need to promote that to the best as we, to the best of our ability, again, over and over and over again.
Yeah, well, and right now they're asking to speak to you because they want your vote. And we have audience numbers just with our state grants that exceed the state population. Yep. So we carry a lot of weight.
Absolutely.
And the time to apply, it's early.
Yeah.
And then often.
And yeah, and then if this was a normal year, which it isn't, I know that, is I would be inviting them to your winter conference or your winter festivals, your winter galas. You can, in most states, and correct me if I'm wrong with Florida, you have to be careful of gift rules, but if they are coming in an official role to maybe get up on stage and kick off your gala or kick off your opening of the Nutcracker or whatever, they're doing that in an official capacity and gift rules don't apply or anything like that. But invite them to connect their vote in Tallahassee to what's going on in Tampa. So they see that their vote matters, that people are benefiting this, that's an important thing to do. And of course, they're politicians. They like audiences, as you were saying, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. This is a great way to put them in front of an audience. It strokes their ego. I'm not beyond that. I will do that if it makes them vote for us, as long as it's ethical, which it is, do that. Invite them into you. They're not always going to say yes, but they might sometime for another. So make sure that all of your elected officials are on your mailing list, email, and always invite them to anything that you have, because if they show up, it really helps to connect the dots. And who knows, they might have a stellar experience and you have a new advocate in Tallahassee or your city hall or wherever it is, that's now your angel is talking about why the arts are essential, not an afterthought.
All right. We're at 11:30, believe it or not. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Nina. I think the information has been really amazing, and we will send all of these links out to all the participants. And we also had a lot of participants on Facebook Live that we can interact with. So I think we've hopefully made a big difference. And I think this is a topic that we need to continue. Jennifer and I have talked about making this a series, that we need to really continue educating our constituents about. I think we forget that the elected officials work for us, not the other way around. And so, like you said, we come with a position of power. We're their voters, and we represent people that can vote for them. So I think you gave us some really great tips and ideas. Jennifer, do you have any final thoughts?
I have a lot of thank you thoughts to Jay and to you and for us coming together and doing this in partnership, because we were planning something. And so to put it together and have one event that was comprehensive, I'm really grateful for it. And I'm hoping that this translates into a lot of engagement in our future calls as we start framing up our actual asks and making these connections with these candidates that are looking for the arts people to talk to them now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is going to be a tough year. So everybody on the call, all of the arts groups, I hope that you are all members of Florida Cultural Alliance. It's our only advocacy group, and it's our voice in Tallahassee. So it's really essential that we all support that, because we need to have one voice and come together. So also nationally, Arts Advocacy Days is a really great opportunity, usually in the spring. I've done it several times, and I've learned way more than the elected officials. I mean, you guys just have so much amazing information. Even I, who've worked in the arts for 30 years, I'm like, wow, we really do have an astonishing impact in this country. So I recommend that, and when the next one comes up, we'll really help promote that. So
it's going to be virtual it will be virtual next year.
Okay.
So everyone can participate. You don't have to fly to DC. So get more and more people to participate for us.
I actually had my ticket for this year, and I'm a photographer. So I was so excited because it was right at the height of cherry blossom. And of course I didn't get to go. And then I'm on these photo sites and everybody was sending, oh my God, this is the best cherry blossom season ever. I'm like, no, I should have been there. So that's my recommendation. Make sure it's always at the height of cherry blossom season.
And I'll do one more thing. If you are, as individuals, not a member of the Arts Action Fund, please do that. Go to artsactionfund.org and sign up. It's free, but we'd love to. We're building the a 1 million-person army to be able to advocate for us on the federal, state, and local level. So make sure you do that too.
Great, and we'll send that link to everybody too. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thanks to all the participants, and we'll all be in touch and be connected, and hopefully more prosperous and better times.
Stay well,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Be safe.